We're back with the second episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. You know, I'm really enjoying the more casual and chilled approach to a Star Trek series. The opening of the second episode works really well. Seriously, if you watch it, you know what I mean. What I would give for Captain Pike to simply sit down and pass me a glass of wine after a long day. Man, I don't even drink wine, but anyway. The other moment we really enjoyed this week was just Pike's general dinner scene. It was amazing. We'd love to get more moments of Pike chilling with his crew. Not only does it give us just a warm, casual Star Trek experience, but also a chance to understand and listen to these unique characters before the ship is getting blown apart and such. I love it. Anyway, join us for our weekly review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Spoiler warning, we'll be discussing this episode in full detail. As such, you have been warned. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get straight into it. Episode 2 is called Children of a Comet, which is a fitting name for this week's adventure as we're all about comets. This entry into the Star Trek universe is written by Henry Alonso Myers and Sarah Tarkov, while being directed by frequent Trek director Marge Averillo, who has done episodes of both Discovery and Picard. Like always, we're streaming towards 100k subscribers here on the channel, so hit that subscribe button. Now if you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then obviously make sure to hit that button, but also hit the like button as well. You can also follow us on social media for your daily updates on the Star Trek universe. Don't forget we have a Discord server as well. Come chat to us, because we want to talk about Trek. Speaking of which, as always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, hit it. Immediately the opening of this episode works really well. Essentially what is Cadet Uhura's introduction to us as viewers. Now long-time fans will know who Uhura is and what she is about, but we don't know much about her past. Strange New Worlds is building up that past life and it works really well for me. We're introduced to her motivations for joining Starfleet, as well as getting to know a great more about Captain Pike's command style at the same time. I love it. As mentioned earlier, this episode feels very much like Uhura's introduction episode. As Sam Kirk says later on this episode, don't study linguistics if you don't want people to ask you questions about it. This is true of any subject, I'd say. One element we're still playing within this episode is the idea of fate. While we touched on the comet's fate, we're also playing with the fate of Captain Christopher Pike, and his vision of the future via the time crystal. Number 1 and Pike have a good conversation about it, and it raises a question that many have wondered about. If you know your future, why not change it? Perhaps this idea does take a stance with Pike, as he asks the computer to call up records on the names of the cadets he will eventually save. These are all currently all children, which makes sense, as in another 10 years time there will be cadets within Starfleet and under the command of Captain, or rather Fleet Captain, Christopher Pike. I'm still very much looking forward to how Strange New Worlds handles the storyline of Pike's battle with his future. Even in the first episode of the series, we're playing with his plot thread, and here we have it once again in the second episode. It does appear to be affecting his judgment slightly, but not as much as where it would be a problem just yet. It does remain to be seen whether it'll have a direct effect on Pike's command ability. I'm wondering if we'll explore that in season 1 or 2, either way, I'm for it. Now don't forget that Trek Central is live on YouTube this Sunday at 2100 BST, 13100 PT and 1600 hours ET to discuss our latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds and answer your questions. Catch both myself and Starfleet Boy live on the screens as we look forward to chatting with you very soon. The away mission element of this week's episode just works really well. I'm starting to notice callbacks to Star Trek Enterprise in a sense. All in all, it just feels like traditional Star Trek and that works super well. The crew gearing up for an away mission, the medical officer giving out medical announcements for the mission. While it's not throwing us into the action, but rather holding our hand gently, it works well. Now there is nothing wrong with this. Yes, the likes of Discovery may chuck us straight into it with explosions here and there, but Strange Worlds feels more gentle in its approach. Both the storytelling, but also the world building at the same time, and that works oh so well. I'm hoping we get more away missions in the future. I mean, we obviously will, it's just my dream that we work like this, you know? Looking at the away mission more, traditional Star Trek bits are used here and there. Uhura's attempt at deciphering the code, while La'an is being tactical and Spock is pointing at the obvious via his comedy, is such, and I love it. Oh, speaking of traditional Star Trek elements, the Enterprise computer sounds really similar to the original voice actress, Majel Roddenberry. See if you can pick up on it as well. I'm not sure who the voice actress is, or whether resynthesizing the computer, but it's awesome.
Computer, identify this song.
Vamo Vamba, a traditional song from Earth, originating in Kenya.
Star Trek has always made use of making the cast do weird and wonderful things in the spirit of exploring new alien civilizations. Strange New Worlds has established itself as no alien to this through the use of singing and frequency harmonics to effectively communicate with the comet, aka the Arbiter. It is very Trek to use music to communicate. I feel like it reminds me of a previous Star Trek episode, yet I can't quite put my finger on it for some reason. It might be an episode of The Next Generation, as they explored weird and wonderful elements of communication. Or maybe one episode of Stargate Atlantis. I don't know, see if you can remind me. Speaking of more traditional Star Trek elements, we also get the B plot of this episode, which is Captain Pike negotiating with religious zealots. This very much reminds me of older Star Trek Enterprise episodes. Maybe because of the early days of Starfleet and the Federation, or perhaps just the style of the writing, but this episode format works really well, as it's essentially a Crisis of the Week in a sense, but with another one added on. Meeting these shepherds who are protecting the comet is an excellent use of the B-plot in my opinion. Again, I compared to previous versions of Star Trek, as that is essentially what we'll be doing a lot with Strange New Worlds. But the idea of the main crew working on the Crisis of the Week, while the other crew is getting in some weird situation, just sticks and lands really well. Religious zealots have been explored in Trek before, notably in one episode of Star Trek Enterprise, so seeing them again is no real surprise. I thought the ones in this episode worked really well to advance the story, though I do wish we could have had some more tense negotiations, but at the same time, it appears these are the types of people you can't really negotiate with apparently. Lieutenant Ortigas continues to be one of my favourite characters in the new series so far, especially her quick-wit comments and efficient piloting of the Enterprise. Her piloting in this episode works super well. Additionally, we also get to see more of the US Enterprise in more action this week, as she moves around dodging incoming weapons fire and moves towards the comet. It worked really well to show the power of the starship. I have to commend the VFX team on this week's episode. It worked really well to see the Enterprise swerving around asteroid pieces and dodging incoming phaser fire. The visual effects here stood out super well, even more so when Enterprise glides gracefully over the top of a comet and we see the planet. Additionally, we get to see Spock in the Starfleet shuttle as well. Samuel Kirk, last week's surprise crew introduction, is a welcome breath of fresh air for about a minute. I'm unsure how much he'll contribute to the actual series overhaul. However, he almost dies in this week's episode. It would be rather ironic if Kirk died in the episode so quickly. Obviously, as a legacy Star Trek character, much like Pike, Spock and a few others, he cannot die due to us already knowing his eventual fate. Chief Engineer Hemmer was this week's latest character introduction. While we didn't get to spend much time with him directly in this week's episode, perhaps that will come at a later date. It's a shame, as I, like many others, am really desperate to meet him and explore more about his character, especially as his species has been explored in previous episodes of Star Trek as well. Even though this episode revolves the Crisis of the Week, as Captain Pike points out, we're still left with the mystery of who actually created the comet. Even more so, the mystery of the comet and its fate is rather unique, especially as apparently it knew its fate before it began, and that Spock essentially fulfilled its destiny to bring more life to the planet below. The moment just works really well and is very Star Trek to the core. Well, that wraps up our weekly review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 2, Children of the Comet. What did you think of the episode? Did it meet your expectations, and do you also agree with us that this episode of the week format is working super well for Strange New Worlds? I'm personally loving it. You know, throughout this episode, part of me feels like we had some nods to elements of Star Trek's Kelvin timeline. Whether it was just certain visual styles, or perhaps musical cues, I'm not sure. It sort of just feels that way. This could be because the last time we actually explored the TOS era was via the Kelvin timeline movies. Discovery's not counted just for the sake of argument, by the way. Now don't forget you can tune to watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds via Paramount Plus, if you're located in the United States, as well as Australia, Latin America and the Nordics. Additionally, you can watch via CTV Sci-Fi channel in Canada and Crave streaming service. If you're in India, via Boot Select and TVNZ in New Zealand, Cosmos TV in Greece. Finally, Paramount Plus will beam down on June 22nd, 2022 to United Kingdom viewers and South Korea. Yay! Okay, so what did you think of this week's Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode? Don't forget that Trek Central is live on YouTube this Sunday at 2100 BST to discuss the episode and answer any questions. In the meantime though, comment down below your thoughts, because if we're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from myself and the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.